Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here today with Dr. Neal Barnard to talk about what causes diabetes. And I'll give you a big hint, it's not sugar. And we're also going to be talking about specifically how you can reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And Dr. Neal Barnard is the world's expert, one of the world's experts in type 2 diabetes. And every word that comes out of his mouth is pure gold. Dr. Barnard, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for that kind introduction, Cyrus. How are you?
I can't complain. I can't complain. Life
Great.
is good. It's actually starting to get a little bit less cold, so I'm always a fan of that.
You bet. Me too.
So today, we're going to be going a lot in depth here about the sort of a little bit of the biology of type 2 diabetes, what causes it, and then what you can do to actually prevent and reverse the development of insulin resistance, which is the precursor to type 2 diabetes. So if you don't have a pen already, I highly recommend grabbing a pen so that you can write as much of this information down. I've read statistics across the internet that say that you forget approximately 90% of what is told to you in a given day. And there's only a very small fraction of all the information that you come across that you can actually remember. So do your best to write as much stuff down as possible. And then that way your pen can help you prevent you from forgetting all of this information. Now, Dr. Barnard is an adjunct professor of medicine at the George Washington University School of Medicine, and he's also the president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. He's conducted many research studies that explore the impact of diet on things like chronic pain, excess body weight, and type 2 diabetes. Now, he has a groundbreaking study on dietary interventions in type 2 diabetes, and that was funded by the NIH, or the National Institutes of Health, and that challenged the conventional view of type 2 diabetes as being an irreversible condition. And it opened the door to the possibility of diabetes actually being a very reversible condition. Now, Dr. Barnard's impressive resume includes authoring over 20 books and serving as the editor-in-chief of the Nutrition Guide for Clinicians. Dr. Barnard, it seems like there's nothing that you haven't done at this point in life.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Cyrus. And let me return the compliments for all the wonderful work that you've done to help people to get not only smarter, but a whole lot healthier too. So it's great to be with you today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, you too. It's always a pleasure. Now, let's get a couple of housekeeping things out of the way. If you have a specific question that you would like Dr. Barnard to answer, then please write your question in the Q&A box that you can find right here on Zoom. You can find it at the bottom of your window. Our team is going to be reading all of your questions as they come in, and then we're going to do our best to have a Q&A at the end of the webinar where we can try and get to as many of those questions as possible. So for now, let's go to the chat box. Tell us your name and tell us where you're from. If you've already been doing that, then keep it coming, because I would like to see just how international this audience is. Usually we see people from all over the United States and even some people from outside. And every time I do this, I ask myself why, because it comes in too fast and I simply cannot read that fast. But there's a lot of people. We got some people from Switzerland, Kansas City, California, Texas, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, all over the place. This is fantastic. Okay, so now go back to the chat box and tell us this. If you consider yourself to be plant-based, as in right now you are eating a plant-based diet, write the number 1 in the chat box. If you do not consider yourself to be plant-based, or maybe are eating a very small amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet, write the number 2 in the chat box. And then if you're somewhere in between, like let's say you're transitioning from a 2 to a 1, but you're in the process of doing that, just give me like a 1.5 or some fraction of 1. From all the numbers that are coming, this is fantastic. I see there's actually quite a bit of 1.5s in there. And when I asked for 1s at the very beginning, there were a decent number. So if I had to hazard a guess, I would say we're like kind of 30, 30, 30. We're about a third of each of those 3 categories, which is fantastic. So congratulations for all of you guys that have made the transition to eating a plant-based diet, and for those of you that are moving in that direction. And Dr. Barnard, again, is going to be talking specifically about type 2 diabetes and why it's so powerful to eat a plant-based diet when diagnosed, or hopefully even before diagnosis happens. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Cyrus Kambata. I have a PhD in nutritional biochemistry, and I have been living with type 1 diabetes for 20 years. I was diagnosed back in the year 2003, And I actually transitioned to eating a whole food plant-based diet in 2003 when it wasn't very popular. And I had a strong suspicion that eating a plant-based diet was going to significantly improve my health. And within a very short period of time, I was able to see significantly reduced blood glucose. I was able to reduce my insulin use by more than 40%. And my overall insulin sensitivity, which is the opposite of insulin resistance, my insulin sensitivity grew by more than 600% or sixfold. So we're going to go a lot into detail, or Dr. Barnard will talk about insulin resistance and what exactly causes it. But you'll see here that a plant-based diet, which is what I've done, which is what he's helped hundreds or thousands of people do, is truly a very, very, very powerful solution. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here for 1 second. And let's just go over a couple of housekeeping items again, okay? So for those of you who may have asked a question, the webinar is being recorded. So you will receive a replay in your email in a couple of days. So in case you miss anything here, you can find it in your email and you can watch the recording. Or even if you want to watch it twice, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay. Now, please keep the chat in the chat box nice and casual. Okay. So all you have to do is look for the chat icon at the bottom of the Zoom window, which you guys have already done. And please be courteous and respectful of one another. Okay. We're all on the same team here. We're all friends with one another. And we all just want to make sure that we are significantly improving the quality of our lives. And that's the type of information that we want to share amongst one another. Okay. You can also turn the chat box off by just clicking the icon in the upper left of the chat window and it'll disappear. Okay. And if you have any questions, please go back to the Q&A box. This is located in the panel at the bottom of the Zoom window. Click on that, put any of your questions in there. And again, we have a team in the background who's going to be reading all of those and going to be able to get back to you with, we're going to be able to answer your questions with a Q&A. So the last thing I'll say here before I turn it over to Dr. Barnard is that I want to give you guys a little bit of an introduction into the Forks Over Knives meal planner in case you have not seen it. So let me share my screen one more time and let's do this. All right. So the Forks Over Knives team, I've known them. I've had the pleasure of knowing them for many years, and they're some of the most phenomenal human beings I know. Every single person on the Forks Over Knives team wants you to improve the quality of your life and live a truly healthy and happy life. It's just that simple. And they have done a phenomenal job of making sure that eating a whole food plant-based diet is as easy as possible to get rid of all the obstacles that could possibly be in your way. Now, for anyone who's adopting a plant-based diet, but may not be as comfortable as you want to be in the kitchen, the Forks cooking course can give you all of the skills that you have been lusting after. Now, this course is designed to give you the confidence and culinary skills you need to prepare a variety of healthy and delicious plant-based meals. And the best part is you can actually get this course for 40% off between now and March 31st. So I'll show you that at the very end. Now, let me just show you a couple of highlights here because I think they're pretty exciting. The Forks cooking course is led by professional plant-based chef educators. They're presented 100% online, and they're designed for you to participate at your own pace. So you can plan your curriculum around your schedule, and you can have lifetime access to the lessons, and you can revisit them at any point in the future. There are 3 fun and flexible courses to choose from. Okay. The ultimate course is an immersive experience focused on foundational plant-based techniques that are going to substantially boost your skills in the kitchen and give you the confidence that you may be looking for. The essentials course is a shorter course with lessons including things like knife skills, basic oil-free cooking techniques, and daily meal planning strategies to help kickstart your whole food plant-based regimen. And the meal prep course will help you learn to prepare for the week by giving you core recipes and techniques to set you up week after week in your own kitchen. All the courses are packed with videos, clear instruction, and a great selection of new recipes. So there's plenty of content for you to go through. There's also a lot of fun interactive quizzes, there's instructor graded activities, and there's special live events for everyone to participate in. Now, thousands of students have already enrolled in these courses, and there is an overwhelmingly positive sentiment. Most students finish their course with improved cooking skills and a huge boost to their cooking confidence. And who doesn't want that? Additionally, the courses are a great way to connect with other students and make new friends in the classroom so that you can exchange emails and phone numbers with one another and make new friends. Now, healthy and fresh foods are vital to keeping your immune system strong and fight off illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, and many other chronic conditions. So you're going to feel great knowing that you're not only investing in learning in how to improve your cooking skills, but that you can build on this over the course of a lifetime. And enrollment for the course is now open. If you register by March 31st, you can save 40% off the regular price of either the Ultimate or the Essentials course. And you can even purchase this course as a gift for someone else, maybe even get one for yourself and one for a friend so that the both of you can go through it together. All you have to do is go to forksoverknives.com/cooking-course, as you see on your screen right there, forksoverknives.com/cooking-course, and get started today. And you are likely to love the experience. So that being said, Dr. Barnard, it is now your turn. I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can all wow us with the knowledge that you have about how to help reverse insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes using a whole food plant-based diet.
Great. Well, thank you, Cyrus. Let me share my screen. I'd like to share some images with you on what we can do. But if you don't mind, I'm going to share with you at first how we got into all this and what it inspired us to try a dietary approach. And it really started not with diabetes, but with heart disease. If you look at the top of your screen, you see a healthy looking artery. The red blood cells are coursing along and they're carrying oxygen to the body. But now here is an artery that's got a problem. You can see in the artery wall, there's sort of a blister. That's an atherosclerotic plaque, and it's narrowing the passageway for blood. And now that little blister has broken open. And you see those purple blood cells, that's a clot forming, and it's stopping the blood flow entirely. Now, this is the cause of death of half of Americans, coronary artery disease. And Dr. Dean Ornish, back 30 years ago, set out to see, can we not just prevent it, but can we actually reverse heart disease? I want to walk you through what he found, because it was really a huge game changer for the world of science overall. He asked people who had atherosclerosis already. They already had narrowed arteries. They already had heart problems. He asked them to begin an experimental program, vegetarian foods. Now, why would you have plant-based foods for heart patients? Okay, no cholesterol, no animal fat. Okay, fair enough. A half-hour walk every day. Try to manage stress, which is why he didn't do the study here in Washington, D.C., where I live, and avoid tobacco. And that was the whole program. There was no use of any surgical procedures, no medications, not even cholesterol-lowering drugs. And after a year on this diet and lifestyle change, your average person's cholesterol dropped 24%, and their LDL, or bad cholesterol, dropped 37%. That's kind of in the range you'd expect from a statin, but this was done with beans and broccoli and brown rice and healthy foods. And your average person lost 22 pounds, which is terrific. They weren't calorie counting, but they lost weight. And what made the headlines was the fact that when everyone had an angiogram, which is an X-ray of the heart, you could see that the arteries were opening up again in 82% of the patients with no drugs, no surgery. Now, let me show you what this looks like. This is a diseased left anterior descending artery. This is a coronary artery, an artery in the heart. And this patient was actually a surgeon himself. Normally, that white streak there, that's the artery. Normally, it's a nice, smooth curve. But you see it gets all crinkly there in the middle because of all those, I'm calling them blisters, forming on the inside, all these atherosclerotic plaques. Now, he couldn't be treated with just a procedure like stenting because the disease was too extensive. And he couldn't handle statin drugs. He couldn't tolerate them. So he thought, well, let's try the approach that Dr. Ornish has used. He went on a totally vegan diet, low-fat vegan diet. And when I say vegan, I mean no animal products. And let me show you what happened after 32 months. Now, on the right-hand side, you see the artery after 32 months. Now, if the little photo strip is getting in the way, just drag it out of the way or minimize it, because I want you to see what's happened. We knew that your skin could heal if you cut your skin. We knew that a bone could heal if you have a fracture, but we didn't know that the arteries could heal, but they can. And it's an amazing thing. Now, your arteries do not heal if people continue to eat cholesterol and animal fat, the kind of stuff that caused the problems in the first place. But when you get those out of the diet, the healing processes begin and can be so remarkable, as we saw in this patient. So let me just walk you through some numbers here. This will not be on the test, but I wanted to show you. If you look at animal products, beef, chicken, chicken with skin, chicken without skin, salmon, cheese, eggs, the middle column is cholesterol. They all have cholesterol, and cholesterol particles irritate the artery wall and cause those atherosclerotic plaques to form. The right-hand column is saturated fat, bad fat. That stimulates your body to make more cholesterol. So you want these numbers in both these columns to be closer to 0. So that's animal products. So let's look at plant products. Well, it is just about 0, isn't it? No cholesterol and almost no saturated fat. Now, look here. Salmon, people think, well, if I have fish, I'll be all right. But, cholesterol-wise, saturated fat-wise, it's just about the same as beef, isn't it? And look at this. Cheese, 11 grams of saturated fat in a 2-ounce serving. No, if it were any worse, it'd be Vaseline. All right, so our research team was inspired by this, and we thought, let's try this kind of approach, but for people who don't have heart disease yet. Let's see what happens. So we brought in 64 women. They were all overweight. Half of them were put on a low-fat vegan diet, no animal products. The other half were on a conventional diet. It was a diet that was followed by the National Cholesterol Education Program, less beef, focusing on white meat, slight reductions in oil, but not vegan or vegetarian. So we asked everyone not to change their exercise patterns, only so that we could zero in on what diet will do. And it was a 14-week study. So we asked everyone to have fruits and grains and vegetables and legumes, meaning beans. And in the vegan diet, these were the foods that they were encouraged to eat, or this was kind of a sample meal, a sample day. Blueberry pancakes, half cantaloupe, rye toast with jam. And at this point, the participants got nervous. They thought this is kind of an indulgent diet. You're having me eating linguine with artichoke hearts and seared oyster mushrooms, and there's no calorie counting. There's no limits on carbohydrate. How is this going to work? And then eventually somebody realized that Twizzlers are vegan. Okay, we're not suggesting that you eat these, but the only rules were no animal products, keep oils really low, and that was it. So we've since that time realized we want to also perhaps encourage people to get away from the junk too. But this was it, no animal products, keeping oils low. And if you looked at body weight, it dropped almost 13 pounds in 14 weeks in the vegan group. And in the control group, they lost only about 8 pounds over the first 14 weeks. But what really matters is what happens as the years go by. And after 2 years, the control group put their weight back on. But for the vegan group, the plant-based group, they were skinnier at a year than they were at the beginning, and they were skinnier at 2 years than at 1 year. Meaning, you're making a qualitative shift. You're just making different choices. You're not worrying so much about how much you eat. You're focusing on what you're eating. And when you do that, you have power that you've never had before. Weight loss without hunger, without counting calories. Okay, so as Cyrus mentioned, NIH gave us a grant to put this to the test for people with type 2 diabetes. And we wanted to test a portion-controlled diet, which is what is used currently in a lot of clinics. We wanted to compare that to a plant-based diet. And the portion-controlled diet was things you might be pretty familiar with. Limit calories, keep carbohydrate pretty steady, avoid bad fats like saturated fat. But the plant-based diet said, avoid animal products, keep oils low, and favor low glycemic index foods. Now, don't get hung up on that word. Glycemic index just means how fast does the food release natural sugars into the blood. So if you eat white bread, your body will digest it, and the natural sugars inside will go into your bloodstream. But if instead of white bread, you have rye bread, it digests more slowly, it releases its natural sugars more gradually. That's lower glycemic index. If you had pumpernickel bread, it's even slower, okay? You with me? So the plant-based diet for diabetes doesn't say to limit carbohydrate or to reduce calories. It just says no animal products, minimize oils, have the healthy low glycemic index foods. And to cut to the chase, what we're tracking is A1C. And you know about this already. A1C is a measure of your blood sugar control. And for a person with diabetes, I would like to keep it below 7. Well, at the beginning, our people were close to 8, really. And on the control group, the portion control diet, they had a drop of about 0.4 absolute percentage points. That's a good drop. I mean, that's the kind of thing that medicines could do for you. So, you know, the diet works. But the vegan diet, the plant-based diet, had a drop of A1C that was 3 times better than that with the portion control diet. So no counting calories, without even exercising, we saw this huge improvement in blood sugar control. Now, let me share with you the experience of an individual who joined this study. He was 35. He had diabetes diagnosed 4 years earlier, and he was on metformin for his diabetes. But he also had some other problems. He had some weight he wanted to get rid of. He had what we call dyslipidemia. His cholesterol was high. He had erectile dysfunction as well. And he told me about his family. He said, my grandma had diabetes. My grandpa had diabetes. I'm going to lose a leg. I'm going to go blind if I don't get a hold of this. His own father was dead by 30. Yeah. So he was motivated to see what he could do. So at the beginning, he weighed 276 pounds. His A1C was 9.5. So this is not the 7 or below that we wanted. He was higher than we wanted. Total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol also both on the high side. And he had symptomatic erectile dysfunction. So we encouraged him to do the diet that I just described to you. No animal products, minimize oils, low glycemic index foods. Very easy. Okay, puts it to work. And the first thing he said, this is an easy diet. And I said, really? You know, people think of a vegan diet as meaning you have to acquire a taste for folk music, or wear tie-dyed clothes, or be a philosopher. He said, no, it's none of that stuff. You instead of meat chili, you have bean chili. Instead of ground beef on your spaghetti, you have a tomato sauce on your spaghetti. He said, very, very simple. And the reason it was so easy is we didn't make him count anything. He didn't have to count carbohydrate grams or calories or anything. He just ate food and he was full and he was fine and happy with it. So very simple. Okay, 3 months later, he's down 25 pounds. That's good. His A1C was down to 7.1%. That's huge. And his erectile dysfunction was in remission. Got his attention. He stuck with it. And at 14 months, he was down 59 pounds. His A1C was 5.3. His cholesterol was much better. And his ED remained in remission. There's one number here I want to focus on. See that 5.3? That's his A1C. That is not diabetes. That's not pre-diabetes. That is a normal, healthy 15-year-old type hemoglobin A1C. And when I got his result, this was 2 decades ago, I remember thinking, can I tell him that he's cured? Can I tell him that he doesn't have diabetes anymore? And at that point, nobody said this. The whole idea was once you had diabetes, you will always have diabetes. And that was not said for to be mean. That was said because we wanted people with diabetes to take the disease seriously. You're going to have to test yourself. You're going to have to take your medications. You're going to have to be careful. And so we wanted people to say, to think, I'm always going to have this. Let me get into a good groove with it. However, here was a man who after 14 months had an A1C in the totally normal range and he wasn't on any medication at all. And for all intents and purposes, his diabetes was gone. And nowadays, we can kind of laugh about it because we see this all the time, where people come in and they change their diets and they lose a lot of weight and they get healthier and healthier and healthier. Their cholesterol gets better, their blood pressure gets better, their symptoms get better, and their need for medication diminishes. Sometimes they get off their medications. Sometimes they don't have the disease anymore. Okay, now you never know how far you're going to go, but we want to give you the chance to see how far you can go. Okay, now let me walk you through what causes type 2 diabetes. Now, if you're doing something else, if you're texting or checking email or doing anything else, let me just have your complete attention for the next minute and a half. So I want to show you the cause of diabetes. This purple oval, this is a cell in your body. I'll call it a muscle cell. And muscle cells are powered by glucose, and these are little glucose molecules outside. They're in the blood, but to power that muscle cell, the glucose needs to get into it, right? But it can't. It can't get through the cell membrane. It's just bouncing off. Okay, so I have little channels, but they're closed. And I have a key. Key is insulin. And it's made in the pancreas, which is a little organ right behind your belly button. And the insulin goes to the surface of the cell. And once that insulin key arrives and parks on the surface of the cell, just like a key, it opens up these little channels. And when the channels open up, the glucose comes from the blood into the cell and things are working great. Okay, super. So that's how insulin works. Insulin is the key that lets sugar into your cells. What could go wrong? What goes wrong is, well, I grew up in North Dakota. I did. And that's my dinner. And that's my lunch. That's my breakfast. And we're eating a lot of fatty stuff. In fact, if you made a list of all the things that we're eating, you find a whole lot of fat in them. Now, what does fat have to do with diabetes? Well, if you eat something fatty, I'm going to eat some chicken, for example. Now, you might think chicken breast doesn't have fat. Chicken breast without the skin is 23% fat. And that chicken fat goes from the chicken in my stomach, and it ends up in my bloodstream, and it goes along, and it ends up inside my muscle cells. And the fat from pizza, cheese, beef, pork, fryer, grease, the fat from those foods ends up in my cells too. These are muscle cells. Fat from the foods that you eat gets inside your muscle cells, and the problem with that is it causes insulin resistance. Now, doctors hate words like fat because it has only one syllable. So we will call it intramyocellular lipid, which means intra means inside, myo is muscle, cellular is cellular, lipid is fat. Intramyocellular lipid is fat inside muscle cells. And so when that's happening, the insulin molecule, the insulin key, still attaches to the surface of the cell, but it doesn't work. The cell is packed with fat. It is insulin resistant. The insulin key isn't working any better than your key would work if you got home and the neighbor kids had put chewing gum in your lock as a prank. Your key doesn't work. So now the glucose can't get through the cell membrane anymore, and it's building up outside your cells. And anything you eat that has glucose in it, you eat an apple, your blood sugar rises. You eat a piece of bread, your blood sugar rises. You eat some rice, your blood sugar rises. And you think, gee, these are bad foods. They're causing my blood sugar to rise. No, that's not the problem. When insulin is working, those foods can provide glucose that can get into your cells where it belongs. If the cells are jammed with fat, the glucose builds up in your blood. Okay, so what do? I go on a diet change that eliminates animal products. And when I do that, there's no animal fat in my diet, is there? And if I keep oils really low, something happens inside that cell, which is that the fat inside the cell begins to go away. It dissipates. And as the fat goes away, as that intramyocellular lipid is disappearing, the insulin key can work again. There's no fat in there to get in the way. Your insulin resistance is diminishing. Your insulin sensitivity is coming back. So now the insulin key opens up the little channels. Glucose comes back into the cells. Everybody's happy. Things are working out great. Yay. This is what happened in the case study that I was describing, where his insulin sensitivity got better and better and better, which is why he didn't need more metformin anymore, which is why his A1C went down. You with me? Okay. Now I want to walk you through some science that led us to understand this. Let's go back to the 1990s. Yale University researchers brought in research volunteers, and they actually put an intravenous line into their blood, into a vein, and they ran in a lipid infusion into their blood. These were young, healthy people, skinny people, normal weight. And what they tracked was their insulin sensitivity. And what they found is that if you ran lipid into the fat into their vein, their insulin sensitivity started to fall off immediately, not over weeks or months or years, but over hours, the same day. Fat can cause insulin sensitivity now. Now, what if I do this not with an infusion, but I'm going to do this with a meal? Okay. Researchers in Germany brought in young, healthy people, and they fed them a meal of palm oil. And what they found was that one single meal of palm oil caused the same problem. Insulin sensitivity went down. If you can't see the whole slide, pull away the photo strip so that you can see that. And one meal of palm oil caused insulin sensitivity to be diminished. Now, palm oil, as you probably know, has got a lot of saturated fat in it. Let's try canola oil. Canola oil is more liquid fat, and it does the same thing. Well, not quite so bad, but it still does it. What we think is happening is that fat from any source can get inside the muscle cells. If it's saturated fat, as in dairy or meat or palm or coconut oil, that's the worst. But generally speaking, we want to avoid these excess fats so that our muscle cells aren't encumbered with a lot of grease. Okay, final study that I want to walk through on this aspect of things. This was also at Yale. Pitt Peterson, Jerry Schulman, and their team brought in 26 healthy people. Everyone got a glucose tolerance test. You might know about this. You drink a kind of a syrupy solution, 75 grams of glucose. And some of the people were insulin sensitive, meaning their bodies were responding to insulin. They drank the syrup, their blood sugars went up, but then their blood sugar came right back down because their insulin was able to take that sugar out of the blood, put it into their body. Good. But others were insulin resistant, meaning they drank the syrup in the glucose tolerance test. Their blood sugar went up, but their insulin wasn't really working very well, so their blood sugar stayed up. Okay, that's insulin resistance. Okay, now who are these people? They're young, 20s. They're not heavy. They're healthy weight, and they do not have diabetes. These are healthy A1C values. Fine. Let's go to the elevator. We're going down to the basement. We're going to go look at the magnetic resonance machines. If you ever had an MRI to look at a twisted ankle or something else in your body, same idea. Only what we're going to look at is the fat inside your muscle cells. We're going to use a technique called magnetic resonance spectroscopy. Okay, let me walk you through this. On the left-hand side, you see a bunch of dots. What I'm looking at here is the amount of intramyocellular lipid in each individual person. Each dot is a person in the study. These are the insulin-sensitive people. These are the insulin-resistant people. And as you can see, the insulin-resistant people, just as I was describing, got a lot of fat building up in their muscle cell. Now let's go one step further. You remember from your high school biology, do you remember the mitochondria? Those are little organelles inside your cells. Those are your burners. They burn up fuels and they give you energy. And here's the mitochondria. Again, each dot is a person. This is the mitochondrial activity in the insulin-sensitive individuals. And here it is for the insulin-resistant people. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that people have been eating pizza and chicken nuggets and beef and turkey sandwiches and gravy and other sources of fat. That fat, that lipid, ends up inside their muscle cells and also in their liver cells. And as it does so, it not only stops insulin from working well, the fat inside the muscle cells also stops your mitochondria from working well. So you can't metabolize things. You can't produce the fuel that you need as well. Okay, so there you have it. And now I'd like to talk to you about your car insurance. Okay, just kidding. This is Geico Insurance. And the reason I'm showing you that building is if I look out my window right there, 3 blocks away is Geico's national headquarters. And we did a study with Geico where they had a couple of thousand people in the building. Some of them had excess weight, some had diabetes, and we wanted to put this diet to the test, not in our laboratory here, but at work. So anybody who wanted to sign up for the study was invited to come once a week to a discussion group about how to go on a totally plant-based diet. And in the cafeteria, the cafeteria manager said, I will give you a vegan meal. We'll make sure we have it. Now, there were a few missteps along the way. What's wrong with this vegan burger? You guessed it. No, the bacon and cheese, they got to come off. Sorry. But anyway, the cafeteria manager figured it out. And the results were really spectacular. People did very, very well. So we then did the study again, but in 10 different cities around the US, at Geico facilities in Buffalo, New York, or Macon, Georgia, or Dallas, Texas, or San Diego, or elsewhere. And what we found is that if you don't change your diet, and you're in a control group, you don't lose weight. Big surprise. But if you do, if you're in the intervention group, vegan diet, keeping fats really low, people lose weight like crazy. They lose weight automatically without really trying. Now, hemoglobin A1C, you guessed it. It doesn't go down in the control group, but it goes down really well in the intervention group. So you can do this anywhere. People can do it at work. They can do it at home. They can do it at restaurants, anywhere. Okay. So we also looked, while we were at Geico, at mood. We found that depression diminished. The green line here is the intervention group. The red line here is the control group. And anxiety diminished as well. So what we found is that something about the success people are having with weight control, improving their diabetes, and maybe some changes in their gut helps people to feel better, not just physically, but emotionally. Okay. Many other people have looked at this, and in a variety of research studies, what we found is that blood sugars tend to improve. This diagram is what we call a forest plot. There were 5 studies at the time that we had did this analysis. And if the little box is to the left of that center line, that means that your blood sugar improved. And as you can see in every study, blood sugar improves. So our study established this, but many others have found the same thing, and quite a number since that time. Okay, the next step is, what if I've had diabetes for a long time? What if I've had diabetes for 20 years and it's attacking my eyes and my heart and my kidneys, or it's attacking my feet with a painful condition that we call neuropathy? Now, neuropathy, it can actually occur in 2 ways. One is numbness, where I just can't feel things very well anymore because the disease process is damaging my nerves. The other way that it can manifest is with pain, that I'm having stabbing pain or pins and needles or something like that. I'm lying in bed, and if the sheets touch my feet, it causes terrible pain. We brought in people who had longstanding diabetes to the point that they had neuropathy, 34 of them. And we asked them to do just what you've already heard about. No animal products, minimize oils, low glycemic index. What did we find? Well, the first thing we did is we asked people, how do you feel? Just tell us. Do you feel like no change? Almost the same, a little bit better, somewhat better, moderately better, whatever it is. This is after 18 weeks. And what we found is that people said, on average, between about a 4 and a 5. So between somewhat and moderately better in the vegan group. In a control group, really not too much change. Then we asked them to stand on a device called a pseudoscan, which measures something called galvanic skin response. What you're actually measuring is if the little nerves can allow your skin to sweat normally. And that's a really good index of your fine nerve function. And what we found is that neuropathy continues to get worse in the control group, which is what happens. But in the vegan group, the people going on a healthy plant-based diet, what we found is that their nerve function was actually improving bit by bit by bit. Okay, so the point here is that we found that a healthy diet doesn't just bring down your cholesterol, bring down your body weight, open up your arteries again, bring down your blood sugar, but it also attacks the disease process itself so that you can really live again. And these complications can be improved as well. Okay, so now Cyrus mentioned at the beginning, the question is sugar the cause of diabetes? Let me tackle that a little bit here. In the British Medical Journal, the BMJ, there was a meta-analysis published 2015. They looked at the use of sweetened beverages, Cokes and Pepsis and sugar-sweetened juices and that kind of thing. And what they found was that those people who consumed the most sugar-sweetened beverages had an 18% increased risk of developing diabetes. And if you adjust for adiposity, meaning if you adjust for body weight, you still saw an increased risk. Something about drinking soda is linked to diabetes. However, they then looked at artificially sweetened sodas. These are things where there isn't any sugar. They're sweetened some other way. And what they found was that that was associated with increased risk of diabetes too. And if I adjust for adiposity, I still see it. Well, wait a minute, wait. The popular notion was that something about sugar is driving the diabetes, but here we found that it's true for a sugar-sweetened soda, but Also for an artificially sweetened soda. Doesn't seem to matter if there's sugar in it or not. This is kind of contrary to the theory that sugar is the problem. Well, wait, that was 2015. Let's fast forward 2 years, 2017. The Canadian Medical Association Journal published a big meta-analysis. They went further. They said, let's look at sugar. All sugars, not just the sugar in a soda, but sugar in an apple or in an orange or in a pie or any kind of, wherever the sugar is coming from, whether it's a natural healthy source or unhealthy source, whatever. And they found for total sugars, the more you ate, the lower your risk of diabetes, or at least it wasn't increasing it at all. Those people who consume the most total sugar had about 9% reduction in the risk of developing diabetes. Now, fructose is one type of sugar, and there was about a 4% increased risk of diabetes. Sucrose is table sugar, about 11% decrease. Wait, stop. What you're showing me now is that if I'm looking at sugars in general, it's really not driving diabetes at all. In some cases, it looks even better. And that's maybe because I'm having sugar in the form of fruit, bananas, apples, oranges, or some sugar maybe on my breakfast cereal, but that might be a whole grain. So the sugar doesn't seem to be the issue. Well, why is it that in the first study that I showed you, when people had soda, they would have more diabetes? Now, if we're not looking at soda, but just sugars in general, you don't see that. Well, the reason seems to be that sodas come with cheeseburgers. Okay, look at this meal on the left. Okay, isn't that a terrible meal? Somebody might look at that and say, see that soda back there, isn't that terrible? Well, wait a minute, it is a terrible meal, but not just with a soda. Look at that burger, 2 patties of meat drowning in cheese, and then the French fries took innocent potatoes that didn't mean you any harm, but they soaked them in grease in the fryer, and all that grease is getting into your muscle cells, your liver cells, causing insulin resistance. You got it. Okay, look on the right. Now, isn't this terrible? They're having a Pepsi with their meal. Okay, not health food, but there's a heck of a lot wrong with that meal besides the drink. Okay, you've got that chicken. The chicken is breaded, it's fried, it's loaded. It had fat already, as I mentioned earlier. Chicken breast without the skin is about 1/4 fat. About 23% of its calories come from fat. And there's a whole lot more in the skin and the breading and so forth. And there are those French fries again, which started out as an innocent potato, and now they're soaking in grease. Okay, so the point, it looks like sodas are associated with diabetes, but not because of the soda, but because of all the junk that comes with it. That fatty burger, the fatty chicken, contributes fat to your muscle cells, which causes insulin to not work anymore. Is this making sense? Now, the only healthy thing on that right-hand side is the carton. If you ate that carton that the chicken came in, you'd probably get some fiber, but all the chicken parts, part of the problem. Okay, so a healthy diet is a plant-based diet. Why? There's no animal fat in it. There's no cholesterol in it. Everything you're eating has a lot of fiber. That brings your weight down naturally without hunger, and it brings your blood sugar down because you're tackling the cause of it, okay? So healthy diet is fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes. Legumes means beans, peas, lentils, foods that come in a pot. You also need vitamin B12. You need vitamin B12 for healthy nerves and healthy blood. And you don't need very much of it. You need 2.4 micrograms per day, but you do need it. This is not optional. Everybody should be taking vitamin B12. No matter what your diet is. If you're on a plant-based diet, you absolutely do have to have it to have healthy blood and healthy nerves. Okay, now, if you go and talk to somebody else, a family member, and you say, I heard about this great diet that might make my diabetes improve. I'd like to try it. I might lose weight. I'm going to feel great. And then you describe it. You're going to discover that other people in your family probably don't quite get it. And that's because logic plays almost no role in human behavior. You know this is true. If you're planning your breakfast, do you really think people imagine, well, how many grams of fiber do I need for breakfast? How much beta carotene do I need? No. We're not using logic. We're motivated by noise. I'm going to call it noise. I mean, media, advertisements, things that drive us to buy things that we might not otherwise get. Or frankly, our culture is a big determinant. What our parents taught us to eat or what our friends eat. And then we might have food addictions. We might have restrictions about things we can afford to buy, or we might just think, I hope that I'll be okay if I eat this way. Logic doesn't factor into it. In fact, when you're talking to a family member or a doctor's talking to a patient and says, plant-based diet would be a great thing for you. Let me show you neurologically what happens to that information. You say to the doctor might say to the patient, a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet. And for about 15 seconds, the ideatron in the brain creates ideas saying, this might be a good thing for me to do. But the ideas irritate the famiglia. And the famiglia then stimulates the don't do it Terry gland to release endorphins, which snuff out this idea. Okay, I'm kidding you. Okay, but here's the serious point that I'm telling you as a bit of a joke, which is that we find all kinds of reasons to not do a healthy diet. Well, it's actually really, really easy. I want to show you how we do it here at the Barnard Medical Center, whether we're working on telemedicine or live in person with people who are coming in. We have a two-step method for helping people make their diet change. I would encourage you to try this too, because we don't confront skepticism. I have never seen anyone unable to do this. Step one to changing the diet. Take a week and check out the possibilities, okay? When I say check out the possibilities, what foods would you like to eat that are plant-based and don't have animal products in them, not a lot of oil? Let's make a list. Let's write down and really do this. If you want to try this, take a piece of paper and write breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. Leave room. Because your job, your assignment, is to fill in the spaces after breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks of foods that are plant-based that you would actually like to eat. You got a week to do it. You don't have to take anything out of your diet. You just got to fill out the list. Okay. Let's come up with some ideas. For breakfast. Okay, oatmeal, that's pretty easy, but I want to flavor it up. I'm going to put some cinnamon and raisins on it, or maybe some blueberries or strawberries or some sliced banana. Oh, okay. I actually like that. I'm going to put that on the list. Or I could have blueberry pancakes. As long as I'm leaving out the butter and the dairy, that's probably going to count. In the morning, maybe I have bran flakes with cow's milk. Let's say I switch to almond milk. That counts too. Okay. All right. So I'm putting these things on my list. Let's say my friend has vegan sausage that he likes. I'll go to the store. I'll buy 2 or 3 kinds. And if you like it, put it on your list. If you don't like it, it doesn't go on the list. On to lunch. I'm going to have pizza with my friends at a pizzeria. And I'm going to say, on your half, you have cheese, but on my half, no cheese. The pizza cook says, fine. People ask me that all the time. Okay, your veggie pizza, you have extra sauce and you have the veggies and so forth on it. That's, if you like the taste, there you go. Or you have chili or a bean burrito or veggie burgers. Your job now is just think of things for lunch or dinner that you might like. If you test them out, if you like them, they go on the list. And if we're going to, say, an Italian restaurant, they've got salads, they've got soups, they've got angel hair pasta drowning in marinara sauce or arrabbiata sauce or something like that. That's fine. That's vegan. Fair enough. The problem you're going to have there is they're a little bit too much in love with their olive oil. Have a word with the cook and say, can you help me out there? Go easy on the oil or leave it off, or put the sauce on the side, and you can decide how much you're going to use. Okay. Down the block, there's a Latin American restaurant. Okay. They've got veggie fajitas, bean burritos, bean tacos. Great. Okay. Super. Chinese. Doesn't get easier than that. They got probably 30 recipes or 30 menu items with rice or tofu or vegetables of all different kinds. Try the ones that you like. Or let's go to, say, a Japanese restaurant. Let's go to a sushi bar. What are they going to have? Skip the fish sushi, but have the cucumber roll or the asparagus roll or the sweet potato roll with edamame, the seaweed salad. Okay, this is getting to be pretty easy. Now, what if I'm going fast food? Subway, Taco Bell, all these places will have plant-based options. The veggie sandwich or the bean burrito, hold the cheese. Fine. Okay, so 7 days have gone by. I took my piece of paper. I've been writing down all these ideas that I've got a huge list of foods that happen to be plant-based that I really like. Great. That is success. Now, you take that list. It's now been 7 days. For the next 3 weeks, I got a new assignment for you. Here's what it is. We're going to do a test drive. What if I eat all vegan all the time for the next 21 days? Easy, because 21 days isn't very much. I can do anything for 21 days, and I've already got my list, so let's do it. At the end of 21 days, 2 things happen. One is physically. I'm losing weight. My blood sugar is coming down. I'm feeling great. But also my tastes are gravitating toward the healthier foods. I haven't had chicken wings in 3 weeks and I don't care. I don't miss it. I'm glad they're gone. Let's see how we do. And then as the weeks go by, you're losing weight. Your blood sugar is getting better. Your blood cholesterol is getting better. Your energy is better. Your GERD is gone. All these things are changing. Let it start. You never have to confront your skepticism. You don't have to believe in asparagus. You just have to put it on your plate. Okay, there you go. We have a free app that you might want to try. It's called the 21-Day Vegan Kickstart app. It's in English and in Spanish, menus, recipes, cooking videos. We have books for medical students, health professionals called the Nutrition Guide for Clinicians, but this is actually free and online. You just go to Nutrition Guide for Clinicians and you can learn everything about nutrition for Alzheimer's or varicose veins or whatever the case may be. We have Nutrition CME, continuing medical education, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, PAs, dietitians, Nutrition CME. And finally, every patient who goes to the Barnard Medical Center, when they're leaving and going home, we give them that little piece of paper. You can actually shoot that with your camera right now, shoot that QR code, or just go to foodinstructions.org. And what you get are little videos that kind of walk you through everything we talked about today, but they're really short and they're really unthreatening. So you can go home and tell everybody what you already learned today. So this is my most recent book, Your Body in Balance, all about how insulin and other hormones in the body can be adjusted by food. Hope you have a chance to pick it up in your library and see what you think. All right, let me stop my share. And I just want to say thank you for letting me share this information with you. I hope you found it useful.
Dr. Barnard, that was fantastic. My favorite part of that whole presentation was your joke slide when you were talking about the ideatron and the don't dietary gland. And when you first said that, I was like, the ideatron? I've never heard of that. What part of the brain is that? Can
you know, when I show that to medical students, they think, oh, I must not have studied that part of it. But anyway,
yeah, that's exactly
yeah, you get the point.
Absolutely. No, but it's real. I mean, what you're basically describing is that, you know, there's a complex, set of thoughts and emotions that happen inside of your brain that are conscious and both subconscious when you see food, when you open your refrigerator, when you go to the grocery store. And familiar sights and smells can elicit this idea that you need to eat a particular type of food. I hear this from people all the time. They say, oh, well, I can't live without cheese. There's no way I can't give up cheese. I've tried to give up cheese. It just doesn't work. I need cheese. And I'm like, you know what? From a biological perspective, I can guarantee that you do not need cheese. What you're telling me is that emotionally, you are inclined to eat cheese because you like the flavor. True or false? And you're like, oh, okay. You're absolutely right. So give us a little insight here. When you made the transition to eating a plant-based diet, what, psychologically and emotionally, what unfolded for you at that time?
I have to say, I found it really quite easy to do. It was maybe 2 weeks or so of thinking, what about this food? What about that? Should I include this or should I not include this? But I really found it very, very easy because all my life I've loved, bean burritos and Mexican food and Italian food and these kinds of things. So I grew up in North Dakota. I got to say, this was, meat central.
Sure.
But I found it really very simple. And I travel a lot nowadays. I found it simple and enjoyable.
That's great. And what year was that?
1977 was when I first started making the changes.
Yeah, 1977. So at that time, plant-based diets were not popular. There was no such thing as social media, and there weren't businesses that were actually helping you make it easy in the grocery store. So
soy milk was a powder. You had to mix up your soy milk powder and pour it on your cereal before it precipitated.
Sounds terrible.
It's gotten a lot easier.
Okay, so you've probably seen, Kim asked a very important question here. You've probably seen, doctors talking about it, people in the world of social media and beyond. Ozempic, semaglutide, GLP-1 receptor agonists. There's a lot of people who are using it for their off-label effects, which is, it's a drug that was designed as, it's an oral medication. Sorry, it's an injectable medication specifically for people living with type 2 diabetes that's designed to help them control their blood glucose. But instead, it also happens to promote rapid weight loss. So now there's a whole collection of non-diabetic individuals that are now injecting Ozempic purely for vanity so that they can lose weight and use it to sort of, give them their permanent effects. Thoughts, feelings, reactions.
Yeah, Ozempic is the Novo Nordisk's brand for people with diabetes. They sell exactly the same drug for weight loss with just a different trade name called Wegovy. And there are a lot of concerns about it. The first concern is that it costs about $1,300 a month, or $1,600 a month if you don't have the coupons. So it's a little pricey. There are some side effects, and also it does not get you out of the obese range. If you're obese using it, you're still going to be obese after a year or so for most people. But that said, I mean, it does cause substantial weight loss, and a lot of people treating folks with type 2 diabetes find it helpful. So I don't want to tell people that they should argue with their doctor about it. However, here's what's important. What in your body, when you eat food, the meal goes down your digestive tract, and your digestive tract is reacting to the foods that you're eating. And one thing that it does is your intestinal tract makes something called GLP-1. GLP-1 goes in your bloodstream up to the brain, and it says, I'm eating, you can stop eating now because I'm full. It reduces your appetite. Ozempic is a GLP receptor agonist. They went into a laboratory and they made a thing that goes to that same receptor and turns the receptor on. And you say, well, why are you bothering with that? Because I can do this. Here's the issue. Different foods stimulate GLP-1 differently. Hanna Kaliova on our research team years ago did a test of a meat-based sandwich, like a burger, and a plant-based sandwich. And the plant-based sandwich causes a really nice release of GLP-1, which is why when people go on part of the reason when people go on plant-based diets, their appetite is more contained and they find themselves satisfied with less calories. So here's my point. There is probably a role for Wegovy and for Ozempic in certain cases. But if you're on a healthy diet, as we've described, weight loss is rapid, dramatic. You're not spending any more money. You're spending less money at the grocery store, and all the side effects are good ones.
Absolutely, 100%. Dramatic, I think, is a very good word, because if you take a look at the actual the rate at which people lose weight, it's tremendous. You know, over the course of I'm trying to remember how long like 68 weeks, which is slightly over a year. Some patients lost significant amount. I'm trying to remember the percentage. It was like 17% of their body weight, their initial body weight, which is tremendous. So quick side note here. We have a podcast, the Mastering Diabetes Audio Experience. Our next episode is literally a deep dive into Ozempic. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about the biochemistry of Ozempic and whether it's safe to use, et cetera, specifically for diabetes, then go ahead and check out that podcast. And we can hopefully answer some of the questions that you may have about it. Tammy says, I've been living with type 2 diabetes for just over 20 years. Is it too late?
Oh, no, absolutely not. The sooner a person makes a change, the better. In fact, even if you do it before diagnosis, you may never be diagnosed at all. But no, it is never too late. In fact, the reason we did the neuropathy study that I mentioned was one of our participants in our NIH trial had diabetes for 18 years. He had terrible neuropathic pains. He went on the plant-based diet. His neuropathy, in his case, his neuropathy disappeared, just gone. We've seen a lot of people come off their insulin and improve dramatically. You never know how far you'll go, but now is the time to jump in. The only thing I would suggest is don't fool around with it. Do the diet, let its power come out. The reason I say that is sometimes people think, well, I'll just try it a little bit and I'll just see how I go. That's kind of like if you got a pneumonia and the doctor says you need an antibiotic, take it 3 times a day. Well, I'll just take it once a day and I'll just see how I do. No, let's cure you if we can. Back off it later on if you feel like it, if you want to be, but for now, jump in the deep end and see what the diet will do.
It's great. Okay. So there's actually 3. We got Terry, Sue, and Mary all have very similar questions. And the question is, Dr. Barnard, I've been told that eating carbohydrate is bad for me. And as a result of that, I don't really eat that many fruits. I don't eat that many berries. And I'm trying to maintain a low carbohydrate diet because that's what the outside world tells me to do. And in addition to that, I'm also trying to limit my intake of gluten. Is this the right strategy? Yes or no?
I wouldn't go that way. No, with regard to gluten's an easy question. About 1% of the population, or a little bit less than 1%, has celiac disease, which is like an allergy to gluten, which is the protein in wheat and barley and rye. If that's you, you can't eat gluten. But the other 99% of people can have gluten all day long, no problem. But carbohydrate is the main fuel for the body. That's what gives the glucose for your muscle cells. You know, you look at people running a marathon, they are stuffing themselves with carbohydrate in the days leading up to it because they want the glucose to get into their muscles and into their liver so they got energy. But fad diets, you're right, have said if you avoid all the carbohydrates, all the vegetables, all the fruits, all the beans, all the grains, all the start, you know, all this stuff, you know, you're going to lose weight, and you will, because that's half or more of what you eat. But those are the healthiest foods. We want to bring them in. Now, this doesn't mean junk, but what this means is fresh fruits, healthy starchy vegetables and non-starchy vegetables, the whole bean group, the beans, peas, and lentils, those are healthy foods for you.
Mhm. Yeah, let's talk about genetics. If you have a family history of type 2 diabetes, asks Mandy, is it really passed down from generation to generation, or can you actually control and or reverse pre-existing type 2 diabetes using your
Yes,
diet?
you can. Yes, you absolutely can. Now, there are a number of genes that make diabetes more likely to occur. And so you'll see it go from generation to generation, but we're also handing down recipes from, we're not just giving our kids DNA, we're giving them tastes for foods. And that's often what we're also seeing. So let's say both your parents had diabetes and your grandparents did. If you follow a healthy plant-based diet, you're physically active, you lace up your sneakers and so forth, you can dramatically reduce the likelihood that this will ever occur to you.
Phenomenal. 2 questions. This is a very good question. This is from Carol. Talk to me about the connection between type 2 diabetes and polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. I was recently diagnosed with PCOS, and given that you wrote Body and Balance and you happen to know a lot about this, please, can you explain a little bit more about what PCOS is and whether eating this way can actually help?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Your Body and Balance does have a whole chapter devoted to it, which I hope you'll have a look at. Just really, really quickly, PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome, is a genetic condition where you're born with this. Your body is making a little too much of the male hormone. You know, men and women have male hormones and female hormones. Everybody's got both, but typically women have a lot of estrogens and very little testosterone. In your case, you're just making a little bit extra, which is why you might notice a little hair on your lip or something like that. Not a lot, but along the way, you also develop insulin resistance. So that's why in dealing with PCOS, what diet do we use? Exactly the same diet as we use for diabetes, because I want to knock that insulin resistance out. When we do that, that helps in turn the hormones to get back into better balance. So give it a try.
Fantastic. Okay, we got 2 more minutes here before we have to wrap this up. Sly says, I'm trying to go plant-based, but I am, in all capitals, addicted to processed foods. Help.
Okay, well, it depends on which foods we're talking about. If we like vegetables and fruits, just bring them in. Sounds like you're not having a problem with that. If you like beans, whole grains, bring them in. That's great. But think about which processed foods are bothering you. If it's spaghetti, hey, that's okay. Yes, it's white spaghetti, but fair enough. You know, and yes, it's ground up, but you can have the spaghetti, just have a healthy topping on top, have it with beans. That's all right. If by processed foods you mean you're having a lot of candy and fried, you know, potato chips and stuff like that, you know what you might want to do? Not have that. But don't tell yourself for the rest of my life I'll never have that food. That's too daunting. Just say, for this week or these next 3 weeks, let me just set that aside and tell the people that you live with. Say, I'm doing this for me, and I'd love your support. Or better still, you want to do this with me? And chances are they're going to say, 3 weeks? Okay, let's do this together. Because you know, they want to lose some weight too. And what you'll find is if you just set it aside, but you don't hit yourself with this heavy weight, like I can never have another, whatever it is, again, see how you do. But your big enemy here is not like a breakfast cereal that's a processed food. Your big enemy here is dairy, meat, cheese, eggs. The animal-based foods don't have any fiber, and they've got a big load of fat that's causing the problem. So let's get rid of that. Let's keep oils low, and then eat the healthiest foods that you can in the fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans department.
It's just that easy. And this is actually very good advice, because so often I see people saying, oh, I'm never going to do this again. And they use the words never. And I'm going to stop eating this permanently. It's too hard to handle, right? Just like you're saying, bite-sized chunks, small time periods makes a huge difference, because all you're trying to do is just do something for 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, and then 21 days. And before you know it, it's been a year. You don't even know it.
You got it.
So this is the last question here. So remember also to check out the Forks cooking courses and get up to 40% off, like we talked about earlier. You're going to be amazed at just how easy it is to learn to cook healthy meals at home. And if you sign up before March 31st, you can save up to 40%. And again, you can always gift this to someone else if you want to go through it with a friend or a family member. Thank you so much for being here today. We hope you enjoy the presentation, and we will see you guys next time. Have a great day.